Hello, in this short video we are going to go through this class warm-up question. We're going to write a program that takes two integer values a and b. The program should then print out the numbers from a inclusive to b inclusive. And we're going to do this using a counted loop and a conditional loop. Understanding how to use both of these loop structures is really important, and learning that how to choose a type of loop in a given situation is going to help make your code a little easier. But it's important to know that counted and conditional loops are completely interchangeable. Counted loops are your for loops, and conditional loops are your while loops. Now, just a little bit of commentary or opinion of myself. I don't love Python as a starting language because the counted loops are actually shorthanded, and so when you translate into languages like Java, it becomes hard to see it, and also they're a little restrictive because there's a lot of things you have to take for granted. And with that, let's dive in. So first thing I'm going to do is going to make a variable a, and we're going to take an input, and we're going to say input a number. I'm going to take a b, I'm going to say input a number. Now remember, Python 3 takes everything as a string, so therefore these are both integer values that are strings, so we can't use them mathematically, so we have to cast them. So a is equal to int a, autocomplete, and b is equal to int b. There we go. And so now we're going to want to write that loop. So a counted loop in Python, I like to use the for I in range. So we're going to say for I in range. Now, with this, I is simply a counting variable that the scope is that it's only accessible, or it only exists inside the loop. And so it's really useful to use this because now I can use I multiple times throughout my larger programs, provided it's not inside this loop. It could be anything I want. We could put counter here, we could put n here, but you'll see a lot of times people will use I. So the way we think about this is we think about what I like to call count, check, change. Now, this isn't what we write here, but let me explain to you what I mean. This first one is where is I going to start the first time we reach the loop. So in this case, I is going to start at A, which is what we've inputted here. The check is going to be what is the check that's done when we first reach the loop, and then again when we get to the end of the code block in the loop. And if that check is true, we automatically go back and run the loop again. Now, this is the funny thing about Python. We don't write an explicit Boolean expression, but one is being evaluated. And in this case, what it's going to check is that it's going to check if I is less than or I is greater than. And that depends on, if I is greater than or I is less than. And that depends on what we set the change to. So in our case, we want to go from A inclusive to B inclusive. So I'm going to say B plus 1. And the change is going to be, we're going to increment each time the loop runs, we're going to increment I by 1. So that's our structure. And again, what this is implied is that we're going to check as long as I is less than B plus 1. So now if I come in here and run this and I print I, and let's come and run this now. So we go to shell, we're going to go cd warmup, we're going to say Python 3 oct 12 loops, and I run it. If I put in 2 and I put in 6, I get 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how we print out those from A to B, where it's inclusive and inclusive. Now, the other thing to point out here is that there's some precondition here around A and B, that A must be less than or equal to B. Now, I could set up a situation, if I put in 8 and 1, notice the program doesn't crash, nothing is printed. And the reason is that if I have 8 for A and 1 for B, A will get initiated to 8, and B is going to get initiated to 2. And so when we first start this, I is 8, and then before it even gets to the loop, it says is 8 less than B plus 1? And the answer there is false, so it skips the loop altogether. The other way we want to do this is using a conditional loop. A conditional loop is a while loop structure, and this works exactly the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by setting a variable called I, and we're going to set it equal to a. So as opposed to actually using the built-in structure that kind of does it for us, we have to write that ourselves. And then I write while, and now I can write the explicit Boolean expression I want to evaluate. So I want to loop as long as I is less than b plus 1. And now I can print I. Now there's a little thing that we've missed here. We have our count, and this is declaring our counter at the start. We have our check, but we don't have our change anywhere. And again, with the counted loop, we have the change to that last parameter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to say I equals I plus 1. I have to manually write that in. So now if I run this, if I put 1 and 10, I get those numbers, because what happens is I get set to 1. Is 1 less than 10 plus 1? And that's true. And therefore I print 1. I becomes 2. Is 2 less than 10 plus 1? That's true. So it comes back up to the top and runs again. Now, the reason why I like a conditional loop so much more is I can play with this expression however I want. I could do this, and this will do the same thing. I could while I is less than or equal to b. And again, there's no difference in what this does, but I'm able to express the Boolean expression differently. And that's one of the reasons why I don't love the for I in range approach, which is essentially Python's way of shorthanding a counted loop. With that, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great day.